Hey guys, Brandon here from Moto Lab. In this video we're going to explain how to check squish using solder. That's the most popular method. Squish is very important. It's usually checked whenever you're rebuilding your top end. Get too much squish, too tight, too short, it's going to give you an engine that could over rev or have risk of engine damage. Then if you get too much squish, or too big of a number, you're going to have a loss of power and the bike's not going to run as well as it could. So throughout the process of the video we'll explain what numbers you should be looking for. The main thing you want to do is look up the manual for which bike you're working on. This one here of course is a 2017 FWE. So a lot of the numbers and everything we're going to be talking about are referring to this bike here. But these numbers are for this bike only, and for if you are doing this on a different bike, make sure you go to our website, motolab.com. Look at the Cobra manuals there we have on hand for every year, make, and model. Within that manual it will explain this process as well as explain the numbers that you should be looking for in your bike. So let's go ahead and get started. The tools you're going to need to do this, of course, starting out pulling off your seat and tank, you're going to need your 4 and 5 millimeter Allen, 6 millimeter socket. Once you get the seat and tank off, you're going to remove your spark plug with your spark plug wrench, and then at that point is where we're going to need the solder. It's recommended to cut the solder off, usually a 3 to 4 inch strip. Make sure it's perfectly straight down, that way it doesn't throw off your readings. Usually just cut it straight with a razor blade and get your piece of solder like that. You are going to bend it similar to a C shape or something along those lines, and you'll see why here in a bit. Then of course you're going to need a caliper to measure the solder once we see what the squish number is. Okay, so now that we've got our seat and our tank removed, next step is removing our spark plug cap wire and then removing the spark plug. Something we like to do before we remove the spark plug, that we already did before we started filming, was clean the frame, make sure there's no dirt above here, that when you're messing around in these wires and these cables, the dirt isn't going to fall into the engine with the spark plug out. So that's something we had already done before, and we highly recommend that you do to make sure there's not any dirt or debris that's going to fall into the engine while it's opened up. So once you got the spark plug out, I like to wipe the top off again to make sure there's no extra dirt or anything that's going to fall in. You're going to grab that piece of solder that we made kind of into a C shape earlier. You're going to go down into the spark plug hole and then make sure that this point is up against the cylinder wall. You want to do it on the left or the right side of the engine, not the front and the back, as the piston, when you're turning the engine over, the piston can rock back and forth a little bit and throw your readings off. So again, you're going to put it down in the spark plug hole and you'll be able to feel when you're against the cylinder wall. Now what you're going to do is take your Kickstarter and turn the engine over. Give it 2 or 3 kicks. Again, making sure that your solder is to the left or right side of the engine. And you'll feel it kind of smash the solder down. And we'll even rotate this a couple of degrees inside the engine just to make sure we hit the tightest point. So that's something that we'll do as well. So there we are. That's how we squish it. You can see that the solder has been squished. The solder is something that we get just at Radio Shack. Really any electronic store has it. This is 60 thousandths thickness is what we've got. I think really anything millimeter and a half, somewhere in there, will do the trick and get it done for you. As the squish that you're looking for is usually on this bike, it's between 0.55 and 0.65 of a millimeter. So as long as your solder is thicker than that, you're going to have a good idea. And you're going to find the thinnest point of this solder. It's usually out towards the end. Sometimes the end has got just a hair bit of thickness, so we move in just a smidge. That 0.57 there is looking like our smallest point. So that's how you measure squish right there. This engine is set at 0.57 of a millimeter. If you look up in the Cobra manual, That is towards, the 0.55 is the 0.55 to 0.65 is the recommended number for this bike from Cobra. They of course do a lot of R&D and testing there to get those numbers. So more towards the 0.55 is going to be a little bit more torque. This would maybe be a setting that a guy would like to run on a tighter track, or to get more, bottom end pull wherever he may want that. So again, that's how you check your squish. If you want to adjust your squish, you do that by changing out the base gasket of the engine. Most of these newer Venom motors from Cobra have a number stamped on top of the engine. I don't know if you can see that or not, but this one says a 6 on it. That means from the factory it came with a 0.6 millimeter thickness base gasket, which of course is your green gasket there underneath the cylinder. To adjust that, to adjust your squish, that is what you need to adjust. You would take, if you want, say we were going to that 0.57 and we were going for more of a number in the 6.0 range, 0.60, we would find a base gasket that's just a little bit thicker to raise that up. So anyways, that's the way to check squish. That's kind of the reason you do it, is to keep the bike running properly. Now that we've got our squish set where we want it, we've got our tank back on, got our seat back on, of course hooked up the fuel line and everything, tightened everything down, we're ready to go. Remember, squish is critical every time you do a top end. Even though you're buying the same parts, the same piston kits, the same gaskets, it is still a manufactured mechanical part, so the tolerances could just be ever so slightly off and give you different numbers. So it's very, very important to check it. That's the only way to know for a fact that you've got your squish number where you want it, which of course has a direct effect on the performance of your bike and how it's going to run. So again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.